Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Tuesday edition of the show, and we have a very fun one in store as we are ranking the most important Bucs heading into this season, the most important players that can take the Bucs from a good team into a Super Bowl contender. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. Scott and I have compiled a list of the top 20 most important Buccaneers for this season. Scott, you ready to get rolling with this one?
I am. This is going to be a fun show, Matt. This was an interesting little exercise, and it's kind of funny, Matt, because you and we stand side by side watching Bucs practice, and we see the same thing, don't we?
Yes, to a degree, for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, for this episode, we did a little collabing behind the scenes. We
Yeah.
didn't, surprise each other or anything. So we both came up with our own top 20 list, and especially with the top 10, we were not very different. I believe we
Right.
had pretty much all the same players, maybe
Yeah.
just a different ranking here or there. But it was very fun to compile this list. We definitely want as much participation as possible from the Pewter people
Yeah.
in the chat, whether you agree with some of the rankings, whether you disagree, who you think should be on. Maybe we have someone on that you think might be off. We're here to listen to, or I guess read all of the comments that come up, because with any ranking, and we are at that time of the year because training camp isn't for really another month. We're at that time of the year where you're kind of embracing debate, ranking
Yeah.
this, comparing that. And, I think obviously every player is important for the Buccaneers, but there are a couple that stand out more than others. So
Yeah.
I think it's a fun list, an important list. And I'm curious to see what the Pewter people think.
Yeah. And it's important to understand that this is one of those exercises that you just can't say who are the best players and rank them in terms of talent, right? Because
Yes.
there has to be some positional importance here, right? And I remember back in the day, really, talking to John Gruden, and he had a famous conversation with Al Davis, right, about the most important positions. And this is up for debate, but really those four top positions were the quarterback, number one. Number two, depending on your flavor, if you're defensive minded or offensive minded, it's that left tackle that protects the quarterback. Number two. Number three, it's that pass rusher, that guy that's going to impact the quarterback. And then number four, it's that top cover corner, the guy who is going to pick off or defend against that top number one player, which is the quarterback. So it all revolves around the quarterback, right? And this is kind of back in the day. Well, now what we're seeing, Matt, and I mean, Mike Evans and Justin Jefferson, there are a couple of the more recent examples. Wide receiver, right, has really crept up. And some teams may value having a top wide receiver more so than maybe a top cornerback or a pass rusher or whatever. So you can pretty much expand that list from the top four players on any given team in terms of order of importance to include five, which is that wide receiver. And it's just become that important. So without further ado, we're going to get to our list here. So again, you're going to see a lot of familiar faces here in the top five. And this shouldn't come as much of a surprise here. But when Matt and I kind of collaborated on this, as he said, we pretty much had this, agreed upon here. And so Pewter Report's top 20 most important Bucs. And you've got quarterback Baker Mayfield, right? He's the point guard on offense, Matt, and he's also the team heartbeat. This guy is a captain, and yet it's no surprise that the captain is going to be the quarterback, right? Eli Manning was the captain of the New York Giants, but Baker Mayfield much different than an Eli Manning, right? I mean, it's just in terms of his presence, his leadership style, his gravitas, and the way he leads. I mean, he truly is the Bucs' heartbeat.
Without question. And Baker Mayfield's the perfect example of the difference between importance and best player, because Baker Mayfield is not the best player on the Bucs roster, but he is very, very important. And, if you were to do this with the 31 other teams in the league, probably 30 of them probably still have their quarterback as the number one of most important.
Yeah.
And, that's obviously just how the NFL kind of works,
Right.
that if you're not getting good quarterback play, the odds are your team is not being successful.
That's right.
Now, to look at it from a perspective of specifically for the Buccaneers, they're asking more of Baker Mayfield this season. It was great
Yes.
what he did last year, revived his career, 28 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards. But now Baker's got that shiny new contract. That doesn't mean, hey, we're rewarding you for what you did.
Yeah.
It's, hey, we want you to build upon what you did. And they brought in a coordinator that he worked with briefly. But now, and we've seen it already in OTAs and minicamp, how much more of a leadership role Baker has brought with this team just after a full season together. Like, he's getting the meetings and getting everybody on the same page, and the option to audible out of certain plays and call different plays and having 2 or 3 in the huddle. A lot of that comes on Baker Mayfield, because if you got to change a play, it's not just, hey, we're going to run it to the left instead of the right. It's, hey, we got to change this protection, or this receiver's going to run this route instead.
Right.
A lot of the football IQ, it's obviously for the whole team, but a lot of this is going to fall on Baker Mayfield. And for better or for worse, the offense will go as Baker Mayfield goes. If it's Baker from the Green Bay game or the play, I mean, even that Texans game, even though the Bucs lost, Baker was great in it. Or
he was
against the Eagles, the Bucs are going to be in fantastic shape. But if you got the banged up Baker from really both Carolina games, Baker,
true,
or that Detroit game in Tampa, or even that Saints game late in the season, if you get that type of Baker, well, who knows what type of situation the Bucs will be in. So this isn't a shocking one by any means.
Right.
Baker, the most important Buccaneer, he's got the contract. Now he has to back it up, because he's got everybody rallying around him. But being that team captain, he's captured the hearts of his teammates and Bucs fans and really the city. So I think everybody is really, really intrigued about this encore performance from Baker Mayfield, now that he doesn't have to worry about his career. He can just focus on playing football and becoming a better player.
Yeah. And, it's funny how it set this up, right, with talking about those 4 premier positions. And, of course, free safety is not one of them, right? It's not a quarterback. It's not a pass rusher. Well, kind of, when you're talking Antoine Winfield. It's not. It's not everything. Yeah, it's not that blindside pass protector. It's not that top cover corner. But what Winfield is, especially for this defense, this Todd Bowles defense, is he is just a playmaker, right? I mean, when you get 6 sacks from your blitzing free safety, right? I mean, that's an insane number. You look at the forced fumbles. You look at the fumble recoveries. Yes. And then you throw in the interceptions, right? The 3 interceptions. So he led the team in interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, and was, I think, second or third on the team in sacks, right? Diaby had 7.5. So, I mean, he goes against the grain here in terms of positional importance for sure, but he is the league's highest paid defensive back for a reason. Right. Because he's that important. And you can take Winfield and put him in different schemes, and he would not be used. He'd still be a very good player. He would still be a Pro Bowl caliber player. But would he be as impactful? Probably not, because he is the ultimate chess piece in this Todd Bowles defense. And because of that, because of last season, and even going back to his rookie season, I mean, he had a phenomenal rookie season. Remember, picked off Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, forced that fumble against the tight end in New Orleans that was a game changer, So he warrants being this high in the top 5 when it comes to the top 20 important Buccaneers.
It's certainly a situation of beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And also, the game is changing, too, in the NFL, where a couple of years ago, or when John Gruden was coaching the Buccaneers, safety probably wasn't as important. Still very important. I'm not taking anything away from a guy like John Lynch, but how safeties are using now, I think safety is in the discussion of like, what's the most important position in football? And a lot of times you can just follow the money. I mean, look at the wide receivers, what they're getting paid. And now Antoine Winfield Jr. is the highest paid defensive back, not
Yeah.
safety, defensive
Right.
back. And of course, that was an unreal play. I think we all remember that one when he mossed Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah.
But the reason why it's a beauty is in the eye of the beholder type of thing, and you kind of spelled it out already a little bit, Scott, is in other defenses, safety and Antoine Winfield Jr. playing safety might not be number 2. But we're talking about the Buccaneers. We're talking about a group that the defensive plays are called by head coach Todd Bowles. And Todd Bowles uses his safeties like an assassin. He loves working with players in the secondary, obviously, because that's where Todd Bowles played when he was in the NFL.
That's right.
And he loves versatile safeties. He likes his corners tall and lanky, and you see that with like Jamel Dean and players of that nature. But he kind of likes safeties a little bit on the smaller side because they can run around, they can use their speed and athleticism. And that's why you saw everything from Antoine Winfield Jr. leading the league in 6 forced fumbles, a couple of interceptions, a couple of sacks as well, and just so many times last year for the Bucs where the play that he made changed the course of a game.
That's right.
Whether it was the forced fumble against Carolina in the last week of the season, the forced fumble he had against the Saints that got the Bucs going early in New Orleans. Time after time, Antoine Winfield has made a great play. And so if you figure out that pass rush a little bit more and you have Antoine back deep, you can still blitz him, but he can still do great things taking the ball away. So for me, it's really tough between Antoine Winfield Jr. and Tristan Wirfs. But for me, I thought the whole way it was Antoine.
Yeah, and when you look at Tristan Wirfs, he's number 3. He's the best blocker. He's the most important blocker because he's that blindside pass protector for Baker Mayfield. He's also the most talented Bucs player. I think if you asked any talent evaluator right across the league, who is the most physically talented, the most athletic, the athletically gifted player, who would it be? I think if you went around the league, everybody would say Wirfs number 1. And that's fine, right? But he's not a quarterback, so he's not going to be number 1 on any of these most important lists. But he could be number 2, right? Again, we talked about Winfield and how his importance is how he's used, plus that supreme athletic ability and the knack for making plays, the football IQ. But with Wirfs, it's just he is a shutdown pass protector in terms of shutting down defensive ends and edge rushers. He's a people mover in the run game, and he's the best blocker on this team for sure. And his importance, well, I mean, just go back to 2021 when he gets hurt against the Eagles in that first round of the playoff game and then missed the Rams. I mean, they were missing some other players that day, right? Remember?
Yeah.
Antonio Brown said peace out against the Jets. Chris Godwin was taken out against the Saints. And then Wirfs was injured and tried to play a little bit on that gimpy ankle against the Eagles, but had to be replaced by Josh Wells. And, he was missed just as much as Godwin and Brown was in that loss to the Rams, that 30-27 devastating home defeat in the playoffs that ended the Bucs' quest for back-to-back Super Bowl championships.
I always go back to what Liam Cohen said about Tristan Wirfs in his introductory press conference as offensive coordinator, saying Tristan Wirfs is a weapon, and you don't just need skill players to have a weapon. You can have a weapon on the offensive line. Obviously, we all love the jumping out of the pool video when he was first drafted by the Buccaneers, but it is such a luxury that the Buccaneers have that you can just have Tristan at left tackle. And remember, he's only been at left tackle for 1 season, and you have a brick wall there in terms of stopping a pass rusher. Obviously, Tristan can move defenders as well in the run game. But just knowing that all of the great pass rushers that Tristan Wirfs has gone up against, that the Bucs have gone up against, they either have to move them to the other side because they don't want the smoke of dealing with Tristan Wirfs, or Tristan Wirfs is just absolutely going to neutralize whoever he is blocking against. And, there's been some good pass rushers in the NFC South. I think that's why we all remember when Khalil Mack got that sack against the Bucs in the Thursday night game when he kind of threw Tristan Wirfs to the side, because that was like the one sack that Tristan allowed in his career. It was so rare. It was so few and far between. Every team wants a great left tackle, and some teams also have very good left tackles. Obviously, Trent Williams comes to mind. But, Tristan and Trent Williams and maybe like Lane Johnson, they're in such a level above everybody else that's like the poster of this is what we want as an offensive tackle. And, I think he's well on his way to being a Hall of Famer. Still has a way to go, but he's going to be a Bucs Ring of Honor member. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. And these next few guys are going to talk about are definitely going to be in the Bucs Ring of Honor, and hopefully both in the Hall of Fame.
I hope so. Yeah, when you look at Mike Evans at number 4, he's the top touchdown producer, right? I mean, you go back to that 2022 season, and I'm not saying that it was Mike Evans' fault by any means, but that was the one year that his touchdowns dipped from 14 to 6, right? And then they shot back up to 13 last year. And what was the difference there? Well, when he had 14 touchdowns, they won 13 games. When he had 6 touchdowns, they only won 8. And then they won 9 games last year, and he rebounded with 13 touchdowns. So this is a guy that finds the end zone, that lights up the scoreboard, and he's just the top target. He's 6'5". He can go deep. He's the ultimate red zone weapon for any Bucs quarterback, from guys like Mike Glennon, who threw his first touchdown pass to Mike back in Mike's rookie year in 2014 at Pittsburgh, right? To Baker Mayfield today, and everybody in between, from Jameis to Tom Brady. He is the offense. Mike Evans has been the offense for quite some time. And without him, and that's why you saw Jason Light have to cut that big check to Mike, this team just is not the same without the touchdown production, without having that big 6'5" target. And you can ask any wide receiver coach or any coordinator that's come through here, Dave Canales, Liam Cohen. It's nice having that big 6'5" X to throw the ball to, and he's going to be playing some X in Cohen's offense, but he's also going to be used in those bunch formations inside, Matt, where you can get some free releases and maybe some mismatches against smaller nickel corners.
And that's what was so great about Mike kind of bringing his game to an extra gear last season, because we know Mike is great in the red zone. It was like clockwork, especially when Tom Brady was there. But Mike last season had several catch and runs for touchdowns, which is not really his forte. And, he could go and get the jump ball, or, it's him versus a receiver or a corner or 2 corners really in that picture. And, Mike's going to get the better of it. But the yards after the catch were really big for Mike last season that I think he can continue to do this year, even though it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the bread and butter of his production for the Buccaneers. The 1,000 yards every single season is great, but the reason why I think Mike is going to age gracefully, and I don't even think, he's not that old. He's 30. He'll be 31 on August 21st in a couple of months. Mike is such a threat in the red zone that it doesn't matter if he gets 1,002 yards, he's still going to put up double-digit touchdowns, or he's a guy you have to account for. So even when Mike gets a couple of years older, if he still wants to play when he's 35 or whatever it may be, he's going to be so important to this team. And I know Bucs fans don't want to hear that right now, because they want the great Mike Evans. They want the Mike Evans that was tied for the league lead in touchdowns last year. But let's also remember, yards-wise, this was some great production from Mike that, the past couple of years, he got over 1,000 yards, but he really had the yards and the touchdowns kind of on the same page in terms of great production in each category. So, Mike's so important in the history of the Buccaneers, and I don't see him slowing down at all this season. He's quarterback proof. It doesn't matter if it's with Tom Brady or Baker or Mike Glennon. Mike Evans still seems to find a way to get it done. And I expect another great season for Mike this year.
I agree. And a guy that just keeps putting up great seasons is Lavonte David. He comes in at number 5. And at this point of his career, he is just the brains and the leader of this defense. It's not taking anything away from his tackling ability. He can still get to the quarterback as a blitzer. I know Lavonte is itching to get another interception, something he hasn't had in a couple of years, and he prides himself in his coverage ability. But at this point, it doesn't matter who is the linebacker next to him, whether it was Devin White last year, or whether it's KJ Britt this year, or Servassier Dennis if he wins the job, or JJ Russell. This is the guy that's going to run the defense. He is the leader of this defense. He is the soul of this defense. and he has been. He doesn't speak a lot. He is a player that will that when he's got something important on his mind, he'll say it, and everyone will listen and take it to heart. But his football IQ, and he can make every single call. He doesn't even need to have the little green dot in his helmet to hear what Todd Bowles' call is going to be. He can, from his film study, diagnose what the down and distance is, what the formation is, and probably know what play is coming and call it even without Bowles whispering in his ear. So he's going to make the guy next to him better, whether it is Britt, whether it is Dennis, or whoever it is playing inside linebacker, that Mike linebacker role, because this is your money backer, and he's worth every penny. Lavonte David comes in at number 5.
If you brought someone that doesn't watch football that much or isn't a big fan, and you put on tape for them of Lavonte David, and you had Lavonte at 23 and Lavonte at 33, I don't think you'd see like too much of a difference. Like, obviously he's a little bit quicker when he was younger, but Lavonte David looks like the same guy year in and year out. And that's so tough to do. The fact that he's been in the league for over a decade. You could say that he's maybe not the savior, but if he was a baseball player, he'd probably be a closer, because the amount of saves he had for the Buccaneers in terms of putting players in the right position or making a great play when it was either Lavonte gets it done or it's a huge play for the other team. Lavonte David just constantly brings it game after game, season after season. And what's big with the linebacker, probably as much as important as it is for a player in the secondary, I love this comment from Furu Kawab. It says Lavonte David is the all-time screen killer. And what I was about to say is the way he anticipates a play, the way that he reads it almost immediately, even before the ball is snapped. That comes with preparation, obviously being in the league for a while, but just sometimes you just have it. And that's exactly what Lavonte David brings to the Buccaneers. I hope he plays for the Bucs forever. I think there's a great argument of like, who has been most valuable to the Bucs over the last decade, Mike Evans or Lavonte David? You know, that's an argument for another day, but they're so important. And like I said, Lavonte David has it very much in the way that I really want to have a whole bundle of Celsius energy drinks, which of course is the official energy drink of PewterReport.com and this Pewter Report podcast. The vibes are very high on the show today as we rank all of these great Buccaneers. And you can enjoy the vibes of Celsius as well. You got the Galaxy, Astro, and Cosmic vibe. A big fan of the tropical and fantasy. And, of course, the Arctic vibe is my personal favorite. There's no sugar. It's gluten-free and non-GMO. If you want to substitute it for coffee, it's a definitely great replacement, especially for the morning to get your day going so you can be as fast and attack the day the way that Lavonte David attacks the opposing offense.
Right.
So if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest place where you could pick one up. It could be a Walmart, health and fitness store, Target, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want to buy more, you can go and buy it in bulk on Amazon by clicking on the subscribe and save. You can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com.
Yeah, so good, Matt. And you know what? I'm dragging a little bit today. I'm just being honest. You know why? I can tell you why. Because I didn't have the Celsius. I ran out. So I've been out of town and didn't restock. So I'm dragging a little bit. I can feel it. It's just such a great boost to your day. Make sure that you are drinking Celsius. And actually just told me I have a case at the door. So I know what that is. That's my Celsius delivered from Amazon.
The day is saved.
The day is saved. So tomorrow will be a better day because of it. I can't drink it now. It's 4:30. I'll be up all night. That's how good it works. But speaking of how good things work, right? Let's just take a look at the next 5 guys here. And starting off the list here at number 6 of our top 20 most important Bucs is defensive tackle Vita Vea. Simply put, he's the monster in the middle of the defense.
Yes.
He is the chief run stuffer. You're not going to get the A gap against the Buccaneers too many times. if Vita isn't going to stop it, Lavonte will, right? So
Hmm.
so there's that. So it's very difficult for teams to run up the middle. Vita Vea is a big reason why, but more importantly, he is the guy that can create that push up the middle. And whether he gets the quarterback sack himself, and remember he led the team with the career high 6.5 sacks 2 years ago and had 5.5 last year, so he's really emerged as a pass rusher. Um, but he can set up sacks for other guys. And now paired with Kalijah Cansey, who is a complete opposite of Vita Vea, a guy that's under 300 pounds that relies on quickness and speed more than brute strength and force. I think Vita Vea is actually going to get some one-on-ones, Matt, which is a dangerous thing because you're going to have to double one of those guys on every play. Either Vita Vea gets doubled and you're leaving Kalijah Cansey open one-on-one, or you are going to double Kalijah Cansey if he is creating too much havoc in
Yeah.
the backfield. And that's going to leave Vita Vea one-on-one against a guard or a center. And that's not smart, but there's only so many offensive linemen you have. And you got to watch out for a thinner, more
Yes.
svelte, yet still just as strong Vita Vea.
That too. You're talking about a Vita Vea that has always taken his game very seriously, but has upped it up a notch this offseason, working out with a friend and former teammate in Ndamukong Suh. And, certain franchises are known for particular teams or positions, things like that. Like the Packers, they've obviously had a great run at quarterbacks. The Buccaneers, even though you have the greatness of Tom Brady and what they did winning the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, the Buccaneers have always been all about defense, and particularly linebacker when it comes to Derek Brooks and Lavonte David, but defensive tackle as well. If you talk about Warren Sapp and Gerald McCoy, and now Vita Vea is the next iteration of that great defensive tackle, or as you perfectly said, the monster in the middle for the Buccaneers. And I go back to that 2020 Super Bowl winning season when it was him and Ndamukong Suh just dominating up front. Teams could not run the ball against the Bucs. They refused to run the ball against the Buccaneers. The run game became short passes for 4 yards, and that's how they slowly inched the ball because they knew they couldn't go certainly in between the center and guards with Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh there. And now the Bucs are trying to recreate that with Vea and Kalijah Cansey. And Vita, he's added a pass rushing repertoire to his game. He's never going to be the way that Warren Sapp was getting to the quarterback when he won Defensive Player of the Year a couple seasons ago, or a couple of years when he was playing years ago. Right. But he can still be a huge factor along that defensive line. As long as Vita's getting a push, they're going to have to double him, or like you said, go against Kalijah Cansey. And there's nothing like a pass rush up the middle. There's nothing like being right in the face of the quarterback, not seeing the field, having to scramble and run for their life. And when Vita Vea is on one, the Bucs are kind of unstoppable on defense. Now, you're not going to get that every single game, but when Vita Vea takes over, watch out because there is not many things that can get in his way.
Yeah, and speaking of pass rush, Tampa Bay's Yaya Diaby. This is a player that was a third-round pick that emerged as a starter last year and wound up, even though he didn't start till over halfway through the season, he wound up as the Bucs' leading sacker. And this, he's a player that I don't say he's too premature to put on this list, but if he lives up to expectations, he'll certainly deserve this particular position because you need to have a good edge rusher. That's one of the things that is a prerequisite for Todd Bowles' better defenses, right? You think Shaq Barrett, you think Jason Pierre-Paul, the Super Bowl year, et cetera. And Diaby is a player that I think the pass rush win rate's going to go up. And when it does this year, you're going to see the sack total go up. He should be a double-digit sacker. He has the talent and the ability to do that. And it's just you go back to those four key positions. Universally speaking, the guy that throws the ball, the guy that protects the guy who throws the ball, the guy who pressures the guy that throws the ball, right? And then the guy who covers the guy who's throwing the ball. So that's where you're looking at this outside linebacker room, and it's a free for all at the other side. But Right now, the Buccaneers have a good one in Yaya Diaby, who has the potential physically, and he's in tremendous shape to be a great one, Matt.
This one is for sure. Yaya gets a good number and a rating because outside linebacker and edge rusher is a little more important than some of the other ones. Because if we're talking about like who's a better player, like Chris Godwin probably would have been the next guy up, or
Correct.
maybe another player.
Yeah.
But
Certainly someone who's
it's
more
one thing.
accomplished, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's one thing to say like who's a better player, but in terms of importance, we're not just saying, oh, edge rusher, so it has to be Yaya Diaby. For as much as he could do last season, Yaya Diaby walked the walk, as they say.
Yeah.
Like, he led the team in sacks. So that's why he's so important to this group. And like you said, he's got all the tools to get the job done. I think he's more motivated
Yeah.
than a lot of people, too. I think Yaya probably took it very seriously to heart that he wasn't in the top consideration for defensive rookie of the year. And maybe
Yeah.
some of that was because,
Well said.
he didn't come on lately. But then you hear Yaya say, I got locked out of the facility because the gym is closed on Sunday, and you
Yeah.
love to hear things like that. Now that's
And also
talking the
too, and
talk.
you know
He's
what?
going to have to walk it again. Yeah.
You're right. And to be fair, I mean, we love Yaya, but to be fair, he was not that dominant in the playoffs. I don't want to say he was invisible, but he did not make his presence felt in the playoffs, whether it's the Eagles game or the Lions game.
Yeah,
And
that's
I know
fair.
he
And like
wasn't
maybe
he
and
wasn't
maybe
happy
they
with the
didn't
way his season
totally,
ended, and he wants to
for
have
sure.
a better season start to finish.
And maybe they didn't totally need him for that Eagles game because there was such domination from the Bucs on offense and defense. But
Right.
yeah, I mean the Bucs certainly could have used someone getting after Jared Goff the way that he carved up the defense. So yeah, that's probably the next step for Yaya is to become that guy on third down that you have to think about every single time. I don't think Yaya is there just yet, but obviously for a rookie season, that was a heck of a start. And there's a lot of expectation and anticipation as well for what Yaya can do in year two.
Yeah. And you look at number 8, Chris Godwin. This is an old term that John Gruden coined when he was talking about his offense. And you had Keyshawn Johnson, who was the more well-known wide receiver, right? He played the X, that
Yep.
split end, Mike Evans type role, even though the offense was different. This was a West Coast offense. But then he talked about Keenan McCardell as that Z receiver, that flanker. And he says, this is the guy that stirs the drink. And I've always
Mhm.
felt that Chris Godwin is the guy that stirs the Bucs drink on offense. In other words, the offense goes through Chris. And it didn't last year, but it did under Bruce Arians, and it's going to again because Chris Godwin is going to be playing in the slot. And he's going to
Yep.
get a lot more targets as a result. He's going to get a lot more catches and more yards. And Chris just has a knack for seeing the middle of the field, finding those open spots in zone, and then still at age 28, the physical ability, whether it's being physical or whether it's using quickness or boxing out with his body, he has the ability to take advantage of favorable mismatches, whether it's a smaller slot corner, whether it's a linebacker in coverage underneath, whether it's a safety coming down either in man or in zone. And he wins in the middle. And the fact that he is in a contract year back in the slot, he is highly motivated to have his best year yet. And his importance in his 3 wide receiver set offense of Liam Cohen's as wide receiver number 2, it puts him in the top 10, Matt.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. There have been other years where Chris Godwin, I've said, is the locomotive of the Buccaneers offense. And you mentioned him playing in the slot. Understandably so and deservingly so. Mike Evans gets all the accolades for the consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, doing it consistently year after year. But there's been times where Mike will get us 1,000, but Chris Godwin was the one leading the Buccaneers in receiving yards. In
That's right.
2019, Chris Godwin had over 1,300 receiving yards. Not only did that lead the Bucs, he was third best in the NFL in
And he
receiving
missed the
yards.
last 3 games
No,
of the season.
that was in 2021,
That's
which was actually going
yes.
to be my next point was going
Yeah.
to be, so in 2020, that's when obviously they got Brady, Gronk, AB, only won football, still had a great season, but didn't have the insane monster year that he had in 2019 when he was with Jameis Winston. But
That's
then
right.
fast forward to 2021, he had 1,100 yards, still led the Buccaneers in receiving yards, and only played in 14 out of 17 possible games
Yeah.
because of the torn
The knee
ACL that
injury.
finished
Yeah.
the season. So twice he's led the Buccaneers in receiving yards when he's played the slot. He's done it with two different quarterbacks as well. I think Chris Godwin and obviously the touchdown production needs to come up, but him in the slot, he could be in line for a crazy year. And I mean that in a good way for the Buccaneers with, as you said, the mismatches that Chris Godwin can get. He came close to leading the NFL in receiving yards in 2019. I think he may be in the running this season.
I agree. Jamel Dean, the top corner for the Buccaneers, or any team, needs to be in the top 10 because it's just that important of a position. We're in a wide open, pass heavy NFL these days, and he is the top cover corner on defense. He's got speed. Zion McCollum would tell you he's faster. If you're comparing 40-yard dash times at the combine, Jamel Dean has the slight edge as a 4.3 guy, and he's in a big year. This is not a contract year, but for all intents and purposes, it is. He saw his good friend and former Auburn teammate, Carlton Davis, get traded away because of two things: not enough interceptions, dropping too many picks, and not staying healthy enough. And that's what has kind of been a little bit of a malaise for Dean, is he has not had enough interception production. He's dropped too many, including the one against the Lions in the playoff game in the first quarter. It was a little bit of a killer because it could have been a tone setter. That's a dropped interception, folks, right there. And that led to an early 3-0 Lions lead. And he's got to stay healthy. He's just spent too much time dealing with some soft tissue injuries. Injuries are so hard to fault a player for, but some guys have a knack for staying healthy. Rondé Barber is one of those guys, or even playing through injuries. And this is an instance where Jamel Dean's got to be that playmaker that earns that $12 million plus salary that he's been getting.
As his cornerbacks coach, Kevin Ross, so well put, he's got to catch the damn ball. He's got to get at least 2 to 3 interceptions this year for the Buccaneers defense. He's got great speed. I like what he does as a cover corner one-on-one. But the drops are, and he's had the opportunity too. It's not like teams aren't throwing towards him or he hasn't had some pass breakups that have hit him in the hands. Yeah. You just put the picture up with the drop that he had against the Lions in the playoffs. He's had opportunities. He just isn't coming up with it. I like Jamel Dean. He's a great interview, but if he doesn't take the ball away or if he doesn't stay healthy, he might not be a Buccaneer after the season. Obviously, like you said, when he's the number one corner, he's very, very important. He's a good player. He just has to be available. And if you're not going to take the ball away, you have to play, maybe hopefully every single game, but you got to limit your unavailability to maybe 1, maximum 2 games. You can't have both. You can kind of live with one, but you can't have both. So that's really the main objective for Jamel Dean. And he said this offseason, he's kind of working on more of the soft tissue areas and things that have flared up when he's tried to come back from other injuries and other things would kind of kick in. So it seems like he's on top of the injury prevention part of it.
Exactly. Number 10 is right tackle Luke Gedeke. He anchors the right side of the offensive line. And for all intents and purposes, the Bucs lost some nasty when Ryan Jensen was gone, right? I mean, Tristan Wirfs is a nice guy. Robert Hainsey, nice guy. Cody Mauch still feeling his way. Graham Barton seems like a nice guy. Luke Gedeke, not so much. This guy is nasty, and now he's sporting a nasty mustache, right? So
he is.
This is a tone setter up front. He is the anchor of that right side of the offensive line. He and Cody Mauch, I think, work exceptionally well together on that side. It's great to see Mauch and Gedeke forming that 1-2 punch over there. He's only gotten bigger, stronger, better this offseason. And he really took a huge leap in his career last year. And I think that better things are ahead for Luke Gedeke this year. The biggest thing for him is cut down the penalties, too many false starts, too many holding calls. If he can correct the penalty issue, he has Pro Bowl potential. He can be better than DeMar Dotson, who is a 10-year starter at right tackle
Yeah.
and a very, very solid guy.
I think Luke Gedeke's just way more confident as a person, and he understands who he is as a player, and I think that's what really hurt him as a rookie. I think he overthought a lot of things, and when the poor play kind of packed on top of it, mentally, I'm not saying he shut down, but it's tough to fight so many uphill battles. He was way more comfortable with himself last year. You saw that personality come out a lot
Yeah.
more, which I think made him a better player. I mean, Scott, you were there. I think it was right before the bye week where Tristan Wirfs came into the media room and did like a private kind of session there with some of the media people. And the fact that he was willing to do that, and the Buccaneers just put out a video of him going fishing with Casey Phillips, and there was the mic'd up video last year where he was getting in the face of the defender, and then obviously getting pumped up about the smelling salts. So I think he's just become so much more comfortable with himself as a player and a person, obviously coming from college and living over in Wisconsin and playing for the Chippewas, Central Michigan, I'm thinking of as well. Grew up in Wisconsin. And, now that he's come to Tampa, I think he's way more comfortable and mentally he's in a great place. And, he loves playing with this offensive line. Obviously, that friendship with Tristan Wirfs has grown and has translated to his play on the field and obviously tackle. If you're protecting both ends, your offensive line's got a good chance. I mean, we all know the issue with this offensive line. It's certainly not tackle.
No, you're exactly right. And if you're looking to tackle some of your medical problems, well, I've got a guy for you. This is my personal physician. Meet Christopher Lugo at the Bay Area Modern Medical Center. Get the personalized medical care you deserve. Are you tired of feeling like just another number in the waiting room at Bay Area Modern Medical Center in Tampa? They believe you deserve personalized care that puts your health and well-being first. Christopher Lugo has over 24 years of medical expertise as a primary care provider. He's dedicated to your overall health, but that's not all. If you're looking for weight loss, anti-aging, and hormone replacement therapy, including testosterone, Chris is your guy. I am a happy and healthy client of Christopher Lugo. I also use testosterone treatments at age 52. I feel better than ever. Well, not ever. I felt really good in my 20s, but I definitely feel like the clock has been turned back for me. So men, listen up. Testosterone treatments can be affordable. That's the important thing, affordable. You're not going to find a better product that is certainly more cost effective than you will with Christopher Lugo at Bay Area Modern Medical Center. Don't let age slow you down. Reclaim your vitality, get back to feeling great, and turn back the clock yourself. Get a consultation at Bay Area Modern Medical Center. If you don't believe me, you will after you meet Christopher Lugo. Visit BAMMC.com to explore the range of testosterone and weight loss treatments. And here's another difference. Christopher practices concierge medicine. That means no more waiting rooms, no rushing through appointments. Imagine a doctor that will see you. If your appointment's at 10 o'clock, you're going to be seen at 10 o'clock, not 10:15, not 10:30, not going to be late for work. It's going to be a doctor that goes over all of your extensive lab results with you, answers any questions, discusses your diet and exercise plan, provides personal vitamin and supplement recommendations to optimize your health. Same-day appointments are also available for your convenience. So, again, can't recommend Bay Area Modern Medical Center enough. Get ready to experience healthcare that revolves around you. Book your appointment today at BAMMC.com. Just check out the website, folks, BAMMC.com. Or call Christopher Lugo at 844-789-2266. Bay Area Modern Medical Center, where your health is the top priority. Let's just recap if you're joining the podcast here a little bit late.
Yeah.
We'll go over real quick just the names here. Baker Mayfield, number 1 in our list of the top 20 most important Bucs. Winfield, number 2. Wirfs, number 3. Mike Evans, number 4. Lavonte, number 5. And then we've gotten through the top 10 here. Vita Vea, 6. Yaya Diaby, 7. Godwin at 8. Jamel Dean at 9. And Gedeke at 10. So this brings us, Matt, to numbers 11 through 15. And we're going to start with Rachaad White. It's kind of funny. You might think, well, the Bucs don't run the ball that well, so why is your running back number 11 on the list? Well, he's the all-purpose yardage producer for this team. When you look at the fact that he had 990 yards rushing and hit over 1,500 yards when you add in the receiving yards. And also the touchdowns he produced, right? 6 rushing touchdowns to lead the team, plus 3 through the air. That's 9. He was the second most productive player finding the end zone, only behind Mike Evans. Rachaad White is a 3-down back, not a 3rd-down back, a 3-down back. First, second, and 3rd down, he gets the job done for this offense. And I think he's going to thrive in this new Liam Combs scheme.
I believe he will too, and I think Bucky Irving can as well. The big thing for Rachaad and what we're going to find out about him this year, obviously the big goal is to get over 1,000 rushing yards and do it in an effective way, not like the last game of the season. Hey, we're just going to keep feeding you the ball 1,000 times so you can get 1,000 yards. But we know Rachaad is very important to really any offense that he's in because he has that receiving prowess and was a big-time all-purpose back. So Rachaad for himself, he can establish, it can kind of go one of two ways. Is he still going to kind of struggle as a runner and just have the receiving prowess where he can be like an Alvin Kamara or another running back like that? And there's no problem in that. Kamara's had a very successful career. There's been other running backs that have done it to a degree. Darren Sproles, obviously much smaller, different situation. Or can Rachaad White pick it up as a runner himself and really be a dual threat running back, being able to do it on the ground and in the passing game as well? I think he very much has it in him, but there's a reason why the Bucs liked Bucky Irving is that he just hits the hole and goes. And that's kind of been a little bit of a knock on Rachaad White. This zone blocking scheme, this new system with Liam Cohen having a lot more motion and moving parts probably should help Rachaad White. And if the Bucs can get this ground game going, that's why Rachaad White is up there at 11 because the run game, it was important last year, even though like it didn't work. Imagine just even having, a like, let's just say 15th best in the league, like that type of running game that can make all the difference. So Rachaad White is a huge piece to the puzzle this year, and it's going to be on him and Bucky Irving to really get the ground game going. I think they can, but Rachaad is, I wouldn't say at a crossroads of his career, but he could really establish himself in a much, much better way this year by improving as a runner.
Yep. Might surprise you to see someone like Zion McCollum hit up Kalijah Kancey. Kalijah probably a better player, right? 1st-round pick compared to 5th-round pick, et cetera. But the fact that you're talking about another starting cornerback, the number 2 cornerback on this team, and he's incredibly athletic, talking about Zion McCollum, he can just do so many things. I mean, here he is blitzing Bryce Young, just about tracking him down. And he needs to get more interceptions. He knows that. He doesn't have any outside of this one interception he had in the preseason. But this is a player that really took a huge step as a tackler, as a cover corner, and was, for all intents and purposes, a starting corner last year. He wound up with more pass coverage snaps than either Jamel Dean or Carlton Davis because he was the one playing in the place of either one of those guys when they were injured. And then he was so important that when Todd Bowles had both Dean and Davis at his disposal for the Eagles game, he put him at free safety. That's how important Zion McCollum was. Josh Capo thinks that he is going to be the breakout player this year on defense. I tend to agree. I think this guy is going to step up and be a legit starting caliber corner, and he might end the season, Matt, really being the Bucs' best corner and maybe even getting that top cover corner nod over Jamel Dean.
I think Zion McCollum is one of the few guys on this list where the season is probably more important to him individually than it is like for the Buccaneers, because he has the speed, he has starting experience just based on subbing in for everybody. But can he be trusted as an every game starter and as a cornerback 2 that eventually could be a cornerback 1? Really only Zion can answer that question, but he's got the speed. Much like Jamel Dean, he has to take the ball away. That was something, again, where he had a drop last year. He's got the capability. It's just whether he can put it all together. But obviously, a big season for Zion could go a long way for the Bucs.
No doubt about it. Moving on, we're looking at Jordan Whitehead. Another safety. Well, is that of great positional importance? Is he better than Kalijah Kancey? Well, in Todd Bowles' defense, which is safety-driven, it's a safety-heavy defense. Remember, Todd was the safety, as Matt pointed out. Jordan Whitehead is really a heat-seeking missile. And
Hmm.
he's even a better version of himself than the Jordan Whitehead that helped the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl back in 2020, because he is a better cover corner now. This guy's an enforcer. He can come up, he can tackle, he can blitz, but he can also do more in coverage, Matt. And you saw firsthand those interceptions he had with the Jets playing a lot more cover four. So he comes back to Tampa well versed as a more complete safety, a guy that can allow Todd Bowles to use Winfield more in the box and in the slot to get those blitzing opportunities, because he has the range now to go back there as that single high safety if called upon.
It bears repeating that the Bucks have been trying to find Jordan Whitehead's replacement since he left, and
That's
they
right.
finally found Jordan Whitehead's replacement with Jordan Whitehead. And
Well
this is
said.
this is number 3 Jordan Whitehead that the Bucks
Yeah.
are getting now. That's 33, as you see in the picture. He's still the physical player that I think the Bucks desperately need in the secondary, and adding a bit of a coverage ability is super, super important. And on top of anything else, kind of like how we began the show, Todd Bowles values safeties more than other defensive play callers and defensive. He's not a defensive coordinator anymore, but head coaches and defensive minded coaches. So Jordan Whitehead deserves to be, within the top 15 on this list. He's in at 13, because safety and what Jordan Whitehead can do is much more valuable than to other teams. And we've seen how the secondary looks like when they didn't have Jordan Whitehead.
Yeah.
Even with the all-pro level of Antoine Winfield Jr.,
Yep.
you need both safeties
Yep.
in this defense, and
And
they got it
and
back with Whitehead.
Whitehead's that elite communicator too. That's where he
Yes.
really brings that skill to the Buccaneers. Number 14, we're going to call it Graham Barton's the starting center this year. All right. I mean, a little bit of a charade here, kind of like last year with the whole Kyle Trask, Baker Mayfield thing. We're going to call it Graham Barton's going to be the center, and he's going to anchor the middle of the Bucs offense. He's going to make the line calls. He's smart enough to do it. He's got the size, the athleticism, the strength, and the football IQ. He's got the total package. So, center, very important position, obviously, like the quarterback, handles the ball in every single play. And the
Yep.
Buccaneers have had a noticeable dip. Sorry, Robert Hainsey, but you've been serviceable, but nowhere near Ryan Jensen. And I'm not sure this guy is at Ryan Jensen level yet. He is a rookie. He was yet to play it down in Tampa Bay, but there's nothing to say this guy can't be great at center. Not just good, great, Matt.
Yeah, maybe one day for sure. That's the hope and belief of the Buccaneers. And if Graham Barton can be an upgrade over Robert Hainsey, if he can really establish himself as a good center, and obviously it's going to take a while with being a rookie in this league, it just gives the Bucs one less thing they have to worry about on the offensive line. It really just gives them one problem, and that's figuring out left guard. Because going into this offseason, even before the draft, it was Bucs have issue at center and guard.
Yeah.
Now it's just at guard if Graham Barton can figure it out. And that's why he's at 14, because it very, very much kind of teeters on the performance of Graham Barton this season.
Yeah. Kalijah Cansey, there may be a day where he replaces Vita Vea inside that top 10. But right now, the Buccaneers were 3-1 without him to start the season. I think his importance is going to grow as his game grows, as he becomes even more of a dominant presence as a backfield penetrator, whether it's tackles for loss, whether it's getting to the quarterback and sacking the QB. Matt, this guy has got the arrow pointing up. It's going to continue to point up for a long ways. I think this guy has the ability to be a Pro Bowl caliber double-digit sacker sooner rather than later. And maybe that happens this year.
Feels like there's still plenty more to go with Kalijah Cansey. And I mean that as a compliment, because there are so many tantalizing moments of what he brought to the Bucs last season, even with a limited amount of play because of his injury. I love what he can do as a pass rusher. So I actually want to see him improve more with those tackles for loss, like specifically in the run game or kind of stuffing out screens and things of that nature. But if he improves in all areas, it's great to have him in the mix. Eventually, he can be a replacement for Vita Vea much further down the road. And in the meantime, enjoy the chaos of Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey. He's super important to this team.
Yep. Well, speaking of super importance, little known fact here, if you're looking for the top points producer on every team every year. It is not the quarterback. It's not the wide receiver. It is the kicker. And the Buccaneers
Yeah.
know what it's like to have a bad kicker. There was a stretch where Jason Light could not hit on a good kicker. And then they know what it's like to have a great kicker. And Ryan Succop helped the Bucs win a Super Bowl in 2020. And this was his replacement, Chase McLaughlin, who is even better and even younger. And that bodes well. He was signed to a multi-year contract extension, and rightly so. This is Money McLaughlin. We've named him that,
Yeah.
and he deserves that type of recognition. Didn't have a lot of game winners last year, Matt, but he has got the ability to be a game winner.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with saying, like, there's a reason why he's Money McLaughlin. And maybe he didn't necessarily have game winners where, hey, there's 4 seconds on the clock and you
Right.
got to hit it. But he had many go-ahead field goals or
Yes.
clutch field goals and hitting them from over, 52 plus and things of that nature. So, yeah, he's going to be in the mix for why the Bucs win games this season.
Next one is KJ Britt, number 17. He's the play caller on defense, and he's in a contract year. He's going to be highly motivated. And you know what? He may not be that impactful, splashy playmaker that Devin White was last year for the Buccaneers, but what he can be is he can be a guy that kind of carries the torch, and is more of a steady Eddie. But
Yeah.
we didn't see the mistakes, the being out of the gap, getting blocked too far down the field like we did with Devin White. It was a steadier presence, maybe not as splashy, but steadier. And I think next to Lavonte David and behind guys like Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey, that's what this defense needs. They need a guy that can be the glue and that steady Eddie guy. And I think that's what KJ Britt can be here in his 4th year in Tampa, which is also, again, a big contract year for him.
Yeah, it's a huge audition for KJ Britt to be the starter for an entire season. And he's got guys behind him, too, with Travassier Dennis and J.J. Russell. And we'll see if Kalen DeLoach makes this team as an undrafted free agent. But another guy like Zion, who I mentioned before, this season very important to KJ Britt as much as it is to the Bucs, because Britt can prove that he can be maybe not necessarily, I mean, no one can replace Lavonte David, but he could be the next true trustworthy linebacker on this team and get a new contract where obviously it's not going to be the highest paid linebacker in the league, but it's going to give him a shot to be a starter for many, many seasons. So important year for KJ Britt and the Bucs.
It is. And it's a big year for Cody Mauch, who's gotten bigger this offseason. He's fast, he's athletic, and that's really what I think the Buccaneers drafted him to be, a left tackle at North Dakota State. And he became a little bit of a people mover at the end of last year in that run game. And I think we're only going to see a bigger version of Cody Mauch move even more people and be more of an intimidator at the line of scrimmage this year.
If he can channel what made him great in college, this could really put the Bucs offensive line and, porous run game from something that was bad to okay or okay to good, and hopefully eventually down the road, good to great. Mauch is another important piece to the puzzle, and he's put in the work this offseason, looking big when we saw him at OTAs and minicamp. And if he could take that step forward, again, it's one thing less that the Bucs have to worry about.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And just to round out the list here, the last couple of guys, Jalen McMillan, a little bit of a surprise. Not really. This is going to be a wide receiver-driven offense. Yeah. This is a 3 wide receiver set. You're going to see it about 95% of the time. That means wide receiver 3 is a starter and going to be probably even more productive in this offense than the tight end. And so right now, I think the top wide receiver candidate is Jalen McMillan. Matt and I kind of agree on that. It might start off as Trey Palmer, but this is a player that with that 3rd round draft pick that they used on him, they have a lot of hope and promise in McMillan. I think he delivers.
For sure. I think McMillan deserves to be on this list at 19, especially with the 3 wide receiver set. He's shown early on that he has the makings of a wide receiver that can be quarterback proof, which means you could play with any quarterback. He looked good with the rookie quarterback during rookie minicamp. He looked good with Baker and, had some work with Kyle Trask as well. Great athleticism, a lot of excitement around Jalen McMillan. So, We've seen this offense that Liam Cohen runs. We've seen it work with, even though he wasn't with the Rams last year. We saw how Puka Nacua
Yeah.
was able to function in a great offense. Maybe Jalen McMillan's the next example of it.
A guy who thrived late at the end of last year when he just really clicked with Baker Mayfield. You go back to that game-winning touchdown against the Falcons in the fourth quarter. And as Matt so aptly puts it, Cade Otton's the top tight end, but he also has that clutch gene. And he's made so many big-time catches at the end of games, touchdowns in his first 2 seasons with Tampa Bay. I think that he's got more on tap this year. And remember, this was the leading receiver in the 2 playoff games. He had 8 catches for 89 yards against the Eagles and then scored a touchdown, his 5th of the year, when you include the 4 he had in the regular season. And this guy's the limit, I think, for Cade Otton. I don't know if he's going to be a Pro Bowler, but I like the fact, Matt, that he wants to be a Pro Bowler. That's one of his goals this year.
Yeah, he's had some big moments, which is important for a younger player now that he's going into year 3. He's never going to lead the Bucs in receiving yards or anything like that because of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and the other guys that we've talked about. But I'm intrigued to see what type of role that he'll have with this less usage of a tight end, but they're still going to use Cade Otton and the tight end position. So I think he can be a nice security blanket for Baker Mayfield in situations where Mike's taken out of the game and maybe something's not working with Chris Godwin. So he will play a factor this season. Obviously not to the degree of the guys in the top 5, but don't sleep on Cade Otton. He's going to be important for the Bucs if they want to be successful.
Yeah, and if you want to be successful when it comes to real estate, got one name for you. That's Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group. Eric Gross is the official realtor of Pewter Report for damn good reason. He is a damn good realtor. You can find him on the web at housesinfla.com. That's housesinfla.com. Make sure to check out the website. It's got a great layout. The important thing about finding a house is it's not just a house, it's a home, and it becomes a home when you pick the right community. Well, Eric knows this area, the Tampa Bay area, like the back of his hand. So whether you're moving into the Tampa Bay area or even the state of Florida, or you're moving out of the state, he can help you on both ends of the transaction, whether it's buying the house you're trying to sell, or he can help you find the house that you're trying to buy. Check out his inventory, list of open houses. You can also find him on social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group. Again, housesinfla.com, or give Eric a call at 513-907-4271. Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report. Matt, this was a fun show. A little bit of a different topic. It's kind of nice to delve into some of these topics in the off season, right? We love the games and breaking down, the injury reports and the matchups and stuff when it's the season. But the off season lists like these, they're fun to do, and it kind of makes you think positional importance, right? You have to consider that as well as the talent of the players as well. And I think we did a pretty good job with the top 20 Buccaneers here.
I agree. Obviously football, there's a lot of players at a lot of positions. That's why the rosters are so big. But yeah, curious to see what the fans think. Feel free to make your own top 20. Put it in the comments below. Feel free to point out which ones you agree with us or maybe you disagree. And, we can kind of embrace debate and all that fun stuff. But it was a great list to make. Tomorrow's show, we will be talking about which Buck takes the biggest step in 2024. Maybe we'll put a little bit more of an emphasis on the year 2 guys like Payne Durham, obviously Yaya Diaby, who is going to grow as an NFL player and help this Bucs team succeed. So that's tomorrow's show. And then on Thursday, we have a special guest, outside linebacker of the Bucs, Marquise Watts is joining the show. We'll obviously talk about his season last year where he really made a splash with the Bucs and how he's preparing for the 2024 campaign as he tries to crack the Bucs roster and maybe even crack the starting lineup. So a lot of great stuff to look forward to. And of course, you can read all of our stuff on pewterreport.com as well, as we have many stories up each day. Please follow us on our social media. We're at X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV, where we have the podcast. Scott just put out a new Pewter Pulse, I believe last evening and earlier today. Also have a lot of other content on our YouTube channel and more to come during the summer and, of course, when training camp returns. So please follow us. And like I said, leave a comment on this video as well with what you thought of the top 20 rankings, what you maybe would have moved differently, or however you felt about it. So appreciate everybody. As always, the Pewter people. We love you, Pewter people. That's going to do it for us on today's show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.
Out.